So we're in Lent now. It's the third Sunday of Lent. We're almost halfway through Lent, so I'm asking you, rhetorically, how's your Lent? Are you still keeping with your Lenten commitments? This is about the time of Lent when most people start falling off the wagon. So I'm telling you, get back on. And Lent's supposed to be difficult. Lent is supposed to be difficult. Oftentimes, the things that make us healthier and better are difficult. So, I'm encouraging you, okay? I am continuing to go through my sermon series on the 7 deadly sins, but more so on the penance that is the healing remedy for sin. All of these homilies, of course, are on our website, napacatholic.church, or on YouTube if you've missed the previous ones on pride and envy and anger. But remember, penance is not punishment. Penance is remedy. Penance is a cure for what sin does in our life. And that's important to keep that in perspective. Sin is real. And the effects of sin are that you and I are not able to love as we ought to and live as we ought to. So Adam and Eve in the garden, before original sin, they could love perfectly, obey perfectly, be faithful perfectly. But then after original sin, their intellects, their wills, their passions were wounded. They began to love imperfectly. And you and I have inherited that. That's what's called original sin. We are just a species now that passes that brokenness on. Now, you and I know how to love. We know how to be faithful. We know how to obey, but now in a broken way because we are wounded. That is why you and your own families love each other dearly, but sometimes you can fight like cats and dogs and hurt each other because we love imperfectly. We're faithful imperfectly. We're broken. Penance is one of the remedies to try to heal our brokenness. Ultimately, it's all under God's grace. So, the categories of that brokenness are the 7 deadly sins. Those are the main ways in which we live that brokenness out. So today I'm speaking about the 4th deadly sin, the sin of sloth. Sloth. That's one of the deadly sins. It's also an animal, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the actual sin of sloth. Sloth, the definition is very simple. This is a very simple sin to get your mind around. It's lack of energy and boredom around spiritual goods. It's lack of energy and boredom around spiritual goods. So you could be inflicted with or suffer from sloth. I do. And it doesn't mean you're a lazy person. It doesn't mean that you don't have energy. It just means that we don't have energy around spiritual things. Let me give you an example. Next fall, when football season comes around, many of you will be like, hey, you want to watch the BSU game? Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. Even after a long weekend of work, you're like, yeah, let's do it. And if I were to say, do you want to come to the Station to the Cross tonight? It's like this. Oh. All the energy leaves your body. That's sloth. Zero energy and boredom around spiritual goods. I can get all kind of excited around a sporting event, hunting, an activity, shopping, and then someone says, hey, want to come to our prayer group? And you're just like, I need a nap. Right? That's sloth. So I'm not the only one that experiences that. It's a real thing. There's something inside of us, our brokenness, that when it comes to a spiritual good, it's like someone pulls the plug on our energy. We just, it's so hard. That's sloth. It's a real thing inside of us that's trying to keep us from doing spiritually good things. So what's the remedy? That's what I want to focus on. The remedy, the penance, the healing is zeal. Zeal, Z-E-A-L, zeal. That's your penance. If you suffer from sloth, the rest of this Lent, I want you to be zealous. And the definition for zeal is very simple. Love of God in action. Love of God in action. You're putting your love in action. That's what zeal is. Well, it is. You're putting it in action. Instead of taking a spiritual nap, you're going to go on a spiritual jog. Very different, isn't it? That's it, is to be zealous for the things of God. Now here's the deal. This is not easy. And I want you to think about penance in the terms of of physical therapy, or perhaps training to lose weight and get healthy. It's difficult. Physical therapy can be painful and hard, but the end goal is to make us better. Training can be hard, and sometimes I'm not excited about it, but the end result is a very good thing. So being zealous for our faith can be hard. Overcoming sloth can be hard, but the end result is what? Holiness. Light. Corporal and spiritual works of mercy being lived out. As Christ said, being the salt of the earth. That's the result. The world's not going to be transformed by a whole bunch of Christians taking spiritual naps. And I have to admit, I'm being honest, as a priest, I have made, so as Mike as a deacon, we have made promises to pray. When you got married, you made vows to love and honor each other. As a priest, I made special vows to pray. And just as there are some times in your life where the last thing you want to do is love and honor your spouse. There are some times where the last thing I want to do is say my prayers. And I come home at night and I'm like, oh, I haven't done my evening prayer yet. And the plug gets pulled. And I'm like, oh, I do not want to do that. And I begin to think about everything I could do but pray. Don't I have some emails I should respond to? Don't I need to wax the garage floor? Don't I do anything but pray? I will look for anything to do but pray. Isn't that twisted? But that's how sin works in our life. We got to step it up and be zealous. Put our love for God in action. As a physical trainer would say, just get your shoes on and your gym clothes on and go. And sometimes the hardest part is the first step. That's what they used to say to me about training. The hardest part is just putting your running shoes on. After that, you're over the hump. And I think sometimes it's that with our prayer. The hardest part is just starting it. I want to talk a little bit about zeal to all of you. The Second Vatican Council. Have you heard of the Second Vatican Council? All of the bishops of the world with the Holy Father gathered at the Vatican from 1962 to 1965. There was a major ecumenical council, and they were asking the question, how do we as a Catholic Church better live and express our faith in this modern context? The world has changed so much. How can we be more effective at preaching and living the gospel in this context? Those are good questions to ask, aren't they? And they wrote several documents, and one of the documents they wrote is called the Decree on the Apostolate of the Laity. There's a whole document about what it means to be the laity. And I want to share with you briefly about that document because it has to do with zeal. In that document, by the way, these documents are amazing. And most Catholics have never read them. We all sort of talk about Vatican II. We think we'll say Vatican II this and that, but most people have actually never read the words of it. So from now on, you can't quote Vatican II until you've read it. That's the new rule. Okay? You don't want congressmen quoting the Constitution unless they've read it, right? Okay. There's a document on the laity. It's beautiful. And here's what it says, in a nutshell. The responsibility, the task of evangelizing the temporal order belongs to the laity. That's what the church teaches. The responsibility and task of evangelizing and sanctifying the temporal order belongs to the laity, not to the clergy. Did you know that? It's not my job to evangelize the world. Here's why the church says that. Look around. How many are there of you? And how many are there of me? The job of the clergy, our mission, of course, is always evangelization on some level. But the job of the priest is to get you ready to go out there. The priest, we are here to give you the sacraments, Eucharist, reconciliation, formation, Bible studies, help you prepare you spiritually to go out of these doors, and you go out there and you sanctify the temple order. And then you're doing your work, and then you come back here again and you're refilled. And your batteries are charged again spiritually, and you go back out there. Think about just in this room right now, in this church, the communities that you're connected to in this world. The people that you are connected, the circles, your circles. Think about just your job. The influence that you have just there. Then maybe the clubs you're in, your groups, your friendships. Now imagine all of us in this room seeking to sanctify that area. The potential for you to transform the world is exponentially greater than it is for me. There's one of me. And you're already there. You already have those relationships. If I go out there and walk into your business tomorrow, I'm going to have to introduce myself. I don't know anybody. They're going to think I'm weird already. But you're already there. You're already connected. You're already trusted. And the church is saying, there's your mission field. Be the light. Be the salt. Sanctify that place. And it doesn't mean you have to walk around waving a Bible around, telling everybody, turn or burn. It's not about that. I like this idea, sanctifying the temporal order. That's what the document says. Sanctifying it. That your very presence and the way that you live is going to sanctify that. And that begins to transform the world. The document says this: the laity are to be like leaven in the world. Leaven is like yeast. A little yeast in the dough, and the whole dough begins to transform from within. Think about, again, get the vision of the Vatican Council, just this room. What if just half of us in this room made a more zealous commitment to sanctify the areas where you are living in? What that could do to this town. Now, some of you are already doing that, but some people aren't. Many of us were afflicted by sloth. I'm one of them. I come to church, I get here, and that took everything I had to get here. And then I go, I get it. I'm afflicted. I'm a sloth person, but I don't want to stay there. I want zeal to come in. I want the power of the Holy Spirit to give me zeal to go out and now to be able to be more and more Christ-like. So zeal is overcoming sloth. I want to give you 2 practical ways to practice zeal for the rest of Lent. Here they are. 2 practical ways to overcome sloth. Here's your penance. 1, everybody in this church, everybody for the rest of Lent, I want you to pray every morning for 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Now, if you're already praying 10 minutes, that's not an excuse to back down to 3, okay? All right? Some of you are like, yes. Oh. 3 minutes. 3 minutes. And here's what that could look like. Wake up, do your thing. You're going to carve out 3 minutes. Go to your prayer chair, invoke the Holy Spirit, and maybe you have an app or something, and you can look up the gospel reading for daily Mass. You're going to open that up, and you read through that gospel reading. There's your first minute. Then you're going to ponder, and you're going to think about that reading. You're going to ask the Lord, Holy Spirit, what are you trying to tell me through this reading today? What do you want me to do today, Lord, based upon this reading? What are you trying to tell me right now in my life? And listen for a minute. Just listen to God speak to you through that reading. And then offer some prayers. Is there something you want to pray for? Do you have a big project at work? Do you want to pray for your family? Offer up a couple of prayers. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, you're done. 3 minutes. Can you do that? Then do it. 3 minutes every day. Begin your day sanctifying it, so you can go out and then be a sanctifier in the world. So that's your first thing. 3 minutes at least every morning. It's got to be in the morning, first thing. You're going to start your day with this. Start it. Second thing. Are you ready for this? You think about in your life how you can be more zealous. Putting love of God in action. I want you to think about that for yourself. And come up, you got 3 more weeks of Lent. You think about it. It's your penance. What are you going to do to be more zealous? Putting love of God in action. And it can be a small thing. It can be a big thing. It's up to you. Your 2 penances. 3 minutes a day prayer. What are you going to do to be more zealous? And that could look like a million things. So that's why I'm just going to leave that part up to you. Sloth affects us all, some more than others. All of these sins are lived out in us more than others. Some of us have bigger tempers, and anger is what we struggle with more. Some of us might struggle with envy more. Some of us might going to be struggle with lust more, with sloth more. We're all different. We're all different. But if sloth is you, be zealous. Be zealous. And remember, penance is not punishment. This is training and the healing remedy to become the holy saints of God.